Hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the JHS show. John Henry Soto here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you all for taking the time to watch the show tonight. Lyla Menkhaus is going to be here. I'm so excited. She's so awesome. Producer, choreographer, Tampa Bay's best dancer 2018. I mean, what? It was just so amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lyla Menkhaus.
Hey guys! See, I threw it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi!
Hi. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being on. Totally awesome. I
Thank
read
you
your
for having
bio. I
me.
was like, whoa. And I saw some of your photos. I'm like, oh, that's just so amazing. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We're gonna have a good time.
My pleasure. And you're amazing. I was
Yeah.
watching your intro just now and I'm like, what? This guy is so cool.
Thank you. It's a little smoke and mirrors, but some of it is coolness.
It's
Some of
okay.
it is coolness.
Razzle dazzle.
There you go. We already have some comments on here. All right. So
What?
we have
Oh, that's my friend Rob. Hey
oh,
Rob.
Rob is on here. We have Lauren is on here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Hey Lauren.
Cool. Thank you everybody for watching. All right. So let's get down to some chat here because I love, I'm a big passionate person about artists. Art in general. It's something that I've been doing for a very long time. And whenever I have somebody on that's doing it, creating a brand and is really doing it with a purpose. It's not just like, hey, I'm doing this. It's really with a
Yes.
purpose to help other people and to really make the world a better place. I always want to make sure that their message gets out and that I share it as much as I possibly can because it's so important.
That's
So
awesome.
yes. So let me ask you, where are you originally from?
I am originally from Buffalo, New York.
Okay. Now I
Yeah.
know these things because I read your bio, but I'm doing TV show things.
Yeah, of course.
So where are you from?
Where are you from? No,
Yeah.
it's okay. Yeah, I actually grew up in a suburb of Buffalo, but I went to school. I went to a private school in Buffalo.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I'm from. My
Cool.
dad is a retired fire chief from Buffalo, and my mom is a retired nurse.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah, and I also
Good,
have a brother. His
strong.
name is Tom.
Nice.
Yes.
And I have Brian is here, Buffalo in the house. That's
Hey,
some of you. Thank you very much,
Brian.
Brian. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Cool. So from
They'll
there,
hear my Buffalo twang coming out every now and then. I'm down in Florida now, but when I start,
when you
sometimes it
start
comes
going,
out.
we're gonna hear the twang. All
Yeah,
right, cool.
that's right.
I'm looking forward to that. So let's make sure we talk long enough because I want to make sure I get
Yeah, that's right.
some twanging there.
Okay.
So when did you go from there right to Florida where you are now, or did you stop off in
um,
New York City
yeah, no, we had
on the way down?
we had a brief the reason I'm in Florida is actually my husband's job. We came down when my children were little. We had a brief stop in Chattanooga, Tennessee,
Nice.
and then we made our way here.
Wow, cool. And you've been there
Yeah,
for a long time?
I think 8 years.
Oh, okay, that's not too long.
Yeah, no, not too bad.
Okay, that's cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So dancing, was that something, right? You came out of the womb doing the
Yeah.
swoon or
I tell people, like I did another interview with my friend last week. I literally feel like I was put on this earth to dance. Even when I'm producing shows, which I do a lot, and I love so much, I love choreographing. But if I'm not personally dancing,
right.
it really fuels my soul. I love it so much.
Yeah. And dance is such an amazing thing because it's really the only art form where you really use your whole right because there's singing and
Yes.
there's anything else that you can think, acting, you use your body, but dance is completely different. You're telling a full story with without saying anything and just with your
Yes.
dance moves. Um Tell me a little bit about that, about that technology, not technology, about that science or about that
Like about communicating through dance.
yeah, that
Yeah.
communication. Yeah, it's so amazing. How did you find that and how do you actually go about that? What's your approach to that?
That's an interesting question. The I grew up dancing in like a traditional dance studio where I learned tap, jazz, ballet, and at that time lyrical. Um, you know, I'm not the only one. Anyway, hip hop and contemporary dancing were not really popular dance styles. I didn't really even start taking those classes until I was an adult. Contemporary got really big in like the 90s. But with this has a point, I promise. With my classical training has allowed me to learn, even as an adult, new dance forms. For example, 2 years ago, I picked up Lindy Hopping. And, I've in the last few years found jazz music, and it's, kind of like married with my tap dancing. But each dance style, I feel, really gives you the freedom to communicate things in different ways. For example, for me, jazz music is very like uplifting. When I listen to that style of music, like I really get very happy and motivated. When I'm dancing contemporary, sometimes I feel a little bit more somber or serious, or if that's what I want to say, that's like a little bit more emotional. And sometimes you just want to be beautiful, so you do a ballet dance.
Right.
It's really nice. The two dance forms, like the dance form that I'm like doing right now, is tap, and then I'm also learning how to Lindy. I'm like super into jazz music right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, most of the dances, though, especially ballet, I'm saying especially ballet, like I know, especially ballet. But for me,
you have your ballet bar behind you.
Especially ballet that I've actually witnessed tells longer stories. Some of them, romantic, some of them even tragedies. With that, and like you said, hip hop was still, I guess it's still fairly new. I mean,
it is. For sure.
From what your experience with seeing that and coming from the other dances, is there this? Are they taking that same type of methods, or are they taking that same type of sensibility where they can communicate through those? Yeah,
absolutely. There's some dancers like me who have learned a lot of different dance forms and are versatile, and there are some dancers equally as dedicated to their trade that only do one dance form. Each person, like I've seen hip hop dances that are extremely moving. One of my favorite, it's called like lyrical hip hop, is from So You Think You Can Dance. When it first started, it was a piece by Tabitha and Napoleon, but it like ripped my heart out. I loved it so much.
Really?
So the answer is yes. Even in newer dance forms, it gives you the freedom to move and communicate like that.
Yeah. Oh, and that's interesting because also in music, I'm a musician, so like I play the blues, I play jazz, I play. I used to play rock when I had long hair, when I had hair, and it was just a completely, easy transition for me. It wasn't like I had to go. I played a lot of Santana stuff. But for dance, is you're saying that some people actually just gravitate towards some of them one thing, and it happens in music too. Like when you listen to
absolutely.
Stevie Ray Vaughan, right? Stevie Ray Vaughan was a blues guitar player. He wasn't a heavy metal guitar player. He wasn't a jazz guitar player per se, although he played some jazz stuff. But yeah, I guess that is part of art, where you can be very versatile in different art forms.
Even that's right.
You can paint abstracts and paint, a fruit bowl or whatever.
Yeah, totally. And really, in America, where everything started from is really jazz music, and before that, tap dancing.
Right.
Do you know where tap dance came from?
Probably from a firecracker factory.
No,
I have no idea.
Do you mind if I tell you?
Sure, of course.
Like a dance history.
Tap dance. I have no idea.
I know. Most people don't. So tap dance is an American art form that was actually born out of slavery. The slave owners would take the drums of slaves because they felt that they were a communication system. And so slaves started dancing with their feet. It was influenced by African and Irish jigging. And from that style of dance was born tap dancing and eventually jazz music. It's a American art form, and it's so cool, isn't it?
But it's completely, of course that would happen,
Yeah, it's
Wow.
amazing.
I mean, so much of our music came from, that tragedy, and then so much of the
Yes,
stuff that we right now, we've taken that tragedy and we've lifted it to such a beautiful thing. We've
I know.
taken
And that's,
it's just
go
incredible.
ahead, sorry.
No, no, I was
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
thank you, Jerry.
Hi, thanks, Uncle Terry.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you,
So
Uncle Jerry.
that's Jerry is also an actor, producer, director in Boston.
Oh, sweet.
Writer, he's amazing.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jerry. Thank
super
you for
cool.
watching. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about like growing up in that type of a world because it can get pretty rough. Uh, just in any art form, really, when you're out there really pouring your soul out. Sometimes you'll run into characters, let's call them characters, uh,
Characters.
characters that are, for whatever reason, they have some kind of darkness in their lives that they want to kind of like share that darkness with others.
Yeah.
Um, how did you run into anything like that? Was there any type of suppression that you felt that you had to kind of like overcome?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually feel that I've experienced that more as an adult than as a child.
Wow. Interesting.
Um, it is interesting. I've thought about that before. My times where the dance world itself can be, I mean,
Yeah.
pretty cutthroat,
Right.
to say the least. I I don't ever remember, like, as a child, my family and friends always really supported my dancing. They were big cheerleaders of mine. My parents drove in, like, we lived really far from my dance studio, but because I loved my dance studio so much, my parents, even despite their full-time jobs and the trades that they were in, continued to drive me. So I really, as a kid, received a lot of love and support, and my teachers were awesome.
Mm,
It wasn't really until I started, choreographing and producing that I feel I ran into
mm,
that more. And really, oh man, I, when I do a show, I like to just go for it. You know what I mean?
sure.
I don't, uh, and sometimes I start, like, I don't put any stop to, like, what my ideas are for that production. I may end up not doing those things. But my shows that have been the most successful are the ones where I have literally ignored everybody, said what I wanted to say, put my
Right.
message forth,
Yeah.
and done what I felt was right. And also didn't cut corners. Like, if there's something that's more expensive, even though I'm doing fundraising for it, we're going to do it because it's going to make the show better and the audience like it more. And then also the performers feel better about what they're producing. But I've actually had some people sit down with me and tell me, like, this is too much. You shouldn't do this. And I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Thanks for
Really interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. I think a lot of it has to do with education too.
Right.
People, obviously everything in our lives comes from art and artists.
Mhm.
There isn't anything, this is what I say in my showcase, like your cell phone, your table, your
I
couch, your
I say
car,
yeah, I constantly say that.
this,
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
someone put these lovely
Yeah.
flowers together behind me. Everything that we do is created by an artist.
Mhm.
And people appreciate the arts, but I just don't think they have the education and understanding about, like, what actually goes into art and how kind of separated and above you
Right.
have to be in order to be able to do it. Like, you really have to be in a very creative, good space.
Right.
And, sometimes what you do initially doesn't make sense, or, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but you just
Yeah.
kind of have to go for it anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that education has to do a lot with people's, trying to stop the arts. And unfortunately, it definitely happens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tragedy that it does happen, and there's so many artists out there that are sitting there and I think even during this time where we had this shutdown or whatever, people were home with time, and I think a lot of people actually
Yes,
went into that art again. They dusted off that
it's true.
instrument or whatever, because they realized, "Oh, here I am. I have this time. I have no excuse anymore."
That's right.
And it's just you have to find the best in this situation. So
Yeah, that's
but
right.
you said something interesting where you said the times where you just don't listen to anyone that's been you're successful.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think it is that really stops people? Because there's
Mm.
always like a because I think everybody wants to do that. As a matter of fact, I think everyone says that they do that. Like a
Yes.
majority of people say, I do whatever I want, whatever I want. But they don't really,
Yeah,
they don't really because they're, whatever. Um, is that something that you had to fight through, or is that something that you
for
early
sure.
on were pretty comfortable?
I think the biggest problem, I mean, I can only speak for myself and, what I've seen from my students and others, but I really think the biggest problem is your own self-doubt
Mhm.
for what you're doing. And, you have to look around and see like what in your environment is making you doubt yourself. Because
Mhm.
my experience is that my first idea, the idea that I just go for, is the best idea.
Right.
And that's the one that I should just do. But then if you have that like internal conflict,
Mhm.
and then somebody comes up next to you and is like, you shouldn't do that, or oh, maybe you could have done it a little better, or whatever. These, my friend Marjorie produced this like music video about like all the little tiny jabs that people say about artists. Somebody said to me the other day, I wanted to produce something, and they were like, well, we have to make sure it's good quality, and they kept repeating that over and over. And I'm like, hey, guess what, everything I do is good quality. You don't need to tell me
Right.
that. Like, that's my job.
Right.
um, but I think the self doubt is probably the thing that where it starts, because if you're like really certain and somebody says something to you, then it doesn't bother you.
Right.
But if you're really stable and certain, if you're unstable and uncertain, and then somebody says something, then you start to think, oh yeah, well, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should slow down. Maybe I shouldn't create that. Maybe I shouldn't, have
Right.
that big dream. That kind of thing.
Right. Right. I mean, I've had that happen numerous times, and like you said, almost not almost every single time that I've pushed all that aside and just
Yeah,
gone forward, um, it turned out fantastic.
it's true.
Like,
Of
yeah, and
course.
then you get there and you're just like, why didn't I just do this with that other thing, or with that
Yeah,
thing, or that thing, or with that
I
thing,
know.
Um, and saying, also communicating when you have because there's proper ways of communicating to someone, and you can say, I don't want to do that. I
Yes.
think this is actually a much better way. I need you to trust me on this, rather than be like, yeah, I don't want to listen to that.
Yeah.
There's ways of communicating. And I think when you're dealing with adults, I think that sometimes gets a little bit tricky because
Yeah.
an adult, depending where they are, obviously in life, but if they feel that they're very passionate about what they're doing, and you're very passionate about what you're doing, but
Yes.
you know that you're right, they know that they are right. That's where it gets really challenging in the adult world. That's why I try
That's
to stay
true.
out of it.
I know.
I don't go into the adult world.
And you just touched on a really good point too, which is, to surround yourself with like-minded people who are
Mhm.
on the same page as you.
Right.
Because like I said, it's really like sometimes it's just evil. Like sometimes you run
Mhm.
into people that are
Well,
just
yeah,
horrible people.
yeah,
But I think most of the time it's just, either not education, they're not educated,
yeah,
or they're dealing with their own problems and they can't see past the end of their nose. But probably the reason I've been so successful recently is I've really, I mean, I'm friendly with everybody mostly. um I try and be nice to everybody, and I really like to have good relationships with people. I would
mhm.
just like to say, full disclosure, that I am not perfect when I say that, but I do
Hey,
try.
yeah,
Okay. But like my closest friend like supports me 10,000%. We talk at least once a day, and anytime I'm feeling that way, she's an artist too. It's Hanali Pendry.
oh yeah,
But anytime I'm feeling like something's not right, I just call her and we talk it out, and we get on the same page, and she helps me see the correct perspective, which is
right,
you're amazing and you need to do what you feel is right, and vice versa. And I really appreciate that
yeah,
relationship. It's really helped me and guide me into what I've all the cool accomplishments that I've been able to do recently.
yeah. That's so awesome, and
Yeah.
you really do need that. You need that group of people, not just a group, but at least one or two people that you can go to. And because there are, as an art, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but there are moments where you're on that ledge. You're like, I can't do
Yeah.
it anymore.
It's
I can't
true.
do this.
Yeah.
And I get it, there, but I have my best friend Clayton Bardner. I call him up, or I have other friends here. My friend Frank, Ben. I call them up, and I'm just like, dude, I'm going nuts. I'm going, but to have the other voice on the other side acknowledge you, and validate you enough to get you back on track is so
Yeah.
important. And I
Super.
think it also goes back to education, because sometimes people aren't educated enough, and this is probably going to sound like I'm a complete asshole, but sometimes people aren't educated enough in how and what to look for,
Right.
what to hear. Those little jabs that you mentioned earlier, man,
Yeah.
that is like the most fascinating thing, because I talk about that all the time. There's little jabs,
Yeah.
and they sometimes they'll sound like they're really out to help you.
Right.
Like, listen, I love you. I know you, but I don't know if this is really going to be the best.
Yes.
Why don't you go home and see if you can work out something? And and as someone who you think cares about you, and I'm sure to some degree they do, but it's just not their reality.
Yeah.
And they're giving you something, and maybe they don't want you to fail, and
Right.
they're afraid themselves.
Yes.
Maybe
Or
they had failures and those kind of things. Um,
totally.
yeah, I want to ask you a little bit about that. I want to ask you
Yeah.
about failure.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's such a fear that people have.
Yeah.
It's I don't
I mean, I get afraid to fail.
Who
For
doesn't?
sure.
But what are
I'm
you gonna
like,
do? Crawl up in
yeah,
a ball and
you
not
just
create?
no,
Right.
you gotta persist and keep going. I feel like every show that I've done that has been the most successful, there's like this curve that you go through on it. Like first you're like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. I'm gonna do this and this and this and this and this. And then like you start getting into it and you realize like the magnitude of what you've created. And there's like a moment where you're like, what was I thinking?
What did I
And then
do? Yeah.
I always go through a period of nobody's going to come.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. And my friends and my team are like, okay, Lyla, let's just keep going. It's just part of the process. And then, of course, it always turns out okay. I
Right.
don't think I've had one unsuccessful show, actually, now that I like this, since you asked me that, but like your perception of what could happen, yeah, it's a little scary sometimes, but you
Yeah.
got to just keep going. I mean, that's the secret, is to just keep going,
Right.
to overcome that. Everything, life throws you curveballs all the time. I mean, we as a country and a world are in the middle of a giant curveball.
Right.
But we can't stop. We have to keep going. We have to keep creating. We have to get others back on their feet. Yeah, you just got to jump in there and do it. And I've had, lately some bad days where I've been sad and upset and don't want to get out of bed and want to watch Netflix and eat ice cream. But, you
There you go.
pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you do a show anyway.
Right. But isn't that what life? I mean, how boring would life be if we didn't have? I mean, obviously, there's curveballs, and then there's the current curveball,
Yeah.
which is the hell of a curveball. It's
Crazy.
a young curveball,
Yeah.
but there's still that opportunity to play the game and to play it at a high level, and to be like, okay, all right, you want to go like that? You want to play like that? All right. So I got to come up with another strategic plan.
Yes.
Do you find yourself now that you've done so many shows and easier to take on a project?
Oh yeah, way easier. My first big show was in 2017. It took me an entire, well, like I had done other shows before that, but like the really big one, big one, it was actually a production of Grease. We did it at a school, and it was the first time I had ever produced a show like that. We had to fundraise like $25,000 to produce it. There was no budget for show production at all. It took me a year to plan. It was so successful. I received like had like people sent me letters for months after I saved them all, just
Wow.
telling me how awesome the show was, and it really. But anyway, what was the question? I started thinking about Grease. I love that
Yeah,
show.
I know. I definitely want to talk about
Sorry.
that too. No, just if you can take a project on now,
Oh
easier.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I remember. So then the next year I did another huge show. I did Pippin, and that Pippin was like my absolute masterpiece.
Mm,
But it just about destroyed me because I organizationally was very lacking. And I took on everything myself.
oh
And I
boy.
didn't know how to delegate or have a team. So I basically spent the entire year of between 2018 and 2019 developing an organizing system for show production, identifying what all the jobs are in a show production. I,
Mm,
did a lot of research. I started doing more work in the community, apprenticing with other stage managers, directors, so that I could really get out there and see. And 2019 was my best year yet, and this
wow.
was like actually a huge success for me because in October of 2019, between October, November, I actually was doing 4 major productions at the same time. Four, 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 four. Yes, and other shows in between. Those were just the ones I was producing. I was still performing myself and choreographing and teaching my
Right.
dance
Right.
classes and everything. But I had just like, you have to organize. You have to learn how to delegate. You have to learn how to use people and trust people, and bring those people on. And so the answer is no, it doesn't scare me at all right now. Like now, if you were
Mm,
like, we're doing a show next week, I would be like, let's go.
awesome.
No
So
problem. We got this.
yeah, I want to acknowledge a few people, and then I want to talk about the organizing part because that
Sure.
seems to be an interesting thing. Happy to hear you and your daughter are still dancing. I remember
Oh,
her dancing
thanks.
at the opening of the Live Improvement Center in Chattanooga. She was tiny then, but that's so awesome.
Yes. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Meg.
Thanks for
Appreciate it.
commenting, Meg.
And it's
Oh,
yeah,
Juliet's here too. That's my friend.
awesome, awesome.
Robin, Juliet's son Paul does my marketing.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yes.
That's the type of
Um,
people, those that do and those that watch. Exactly.
yes, Uncle Jerry, you got it.
You got
That's
that
so
right.
true.
We got
Leave
Rachel
your
here.
opinions to yourself.
That's
Oh, hey,
right.
Rachel.
Okay, and this was amazing. Okay, awesome,
Well,
awesome.
also in I'm sure Rob was talking about Pippin because his son
Hmm.
Paul, who still works with me, was Pippin, and his sister Grace was the leading player. I don't know if you know that show
Ah,
at all, but that show was very special for us.
yeah, that's so great. So let's talk a little bit about
Yeah,
organizing because that seems to be one
sure.
of the things that I've run into with artists that they're not really into it. It's
No.
just and they don't even want to be bothered with it, and I
Yeah.
always, one of the things I always say when I was with a record label for a couple of years managing a few bands, and I remember just saying, it's show business.
Business. That's right.
You have to
It's
show
true.
business. It's okay to have business involved in it, but
Yeah.
is it something that, because I get it, it's not the most exciting thing to sit there and to create an organization board and to make sure your statistics are in order, and you're doing all the steps, daily steps, the battle plans, and
Yeah.
but it is such a necessary thing, I think,
Oh
more
yeah.
today than it ever was, because in today's world, don't you feel that we have more control over our own art than we did in the past? Like me as a
For
musician,
sure.
I can record albums, sell them online, I can perform online if I want to, I could do everything on my own without having the major labels or anything. Um,
Yes. Same.
so talk a little bit about that. Like, how did you, from where you were to where you are, and the things that you implemented, how did that change for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was for sure one of those people who hated to organize. And
Me too.
I'll just be really, yeah, I'll be super honest here. Because I was a teenager in the 90s, I mean, I didn't own a cell phone until I was in my 20s, really, until I was
Right.
pregnant with my daughter. And because I was home with kids and like I was just teaching some dance classes, I didn't even really, okay, I'm sorry. I'm saying how old I actually am, but that's okay.
It's okay.
I really didn't even learn how to use a computer, like more than just emailing. Like I didn't know how to do a spreadsheet. I didn't know, I didn't know how to use Google Drive. I didn't know how to make charts. I didn't know how to do any of those things to organize. So, yeah. But for me, like, I get this is like part of aligning people who are on the same page as you. Like Rob, who's listening here now, his son, has been my student for years. And now he's graduated. And another one of my students, Lauren, who's also listening right now, who's in college now. But they have actually produced all of my performances with me. And they love to organize and they love things. So, I'm like, and my husband is also a business guy. So I'm like, okay, guys, I have this idea. How do I do this? And, Paul's like, well, here, you just put it here. And Lauren's like, Lyla, I got you. 10 steps ahead of me.
Right.
Yeah. So, now I'm for sure more educated in that part of it. But, this just, like, I think part of it is just recognizing where your strengths and weaknesses are.
Right.
And then surrounding yourself with people who do love it and do know how to do it. And now we're like a cohesive unit. Like when we sat down to do this showcase, I called them. I was like, hey guys, want to do a show? And they were like, hell yeah, we want to do a show. And we had our first meeting and they came with all of the organization done and we were just ready to roll. It was awesome.
Wow. See, that's what you said earlier about surrounding yourself with like-minded people and
Yes.
the skill set, because it definitely is such an important skill set to have. You have to just find someone that likes to do it, like editing.
Yeah.
For me, like I dread editing. Like
you do?
Yeah, I'm a director.
Oh,
I
actually love to edit. That I
do
love
you?
to do. At like 2 a.m., which I shouldn't do ever, but that's when I start. Like midnight, everybody's in bed.
Yeah.
That's when the editing starts. And I love it.
Casting. I love directing and writing, and I've done a lot of films and stuff, but I cannot. And I'm doing it right now. Right now during COVID, I sat down and I'm halfway through a film right now that I'm editing.
Oh, that's awesome.
I am like sitting there like, I have to have coffee and music playing. But it is true to find that person. There are people that love to edit, like you just said, you love to edit, and that's like a great thing to have. Let's talk about this showcase because this is a very, very cool thing.
Yeah,
and
we're
I'm gonna actually put this up there while it blocks us for a second. But so November 1st, Artists United to Save the Arts. So tell me a little bit about this event.
Yeah. So, well, just say the specifics. We're doing it on November 1st at the District Dance Academy. I have just an incredible lineup of professional and pre-professional artists that are participating. Anyway, you can see them all right there. But we are so excited. Like, we have not performed together, my friends and I, in 7 months.
Wow.
And really, I mean, there were a lot of reasons I wanted to do the show, but part of the reason that I felt that I could embark on it is that 8 O'Clock Theater, one of the theaters that we're sponsoring or fundraising for in the performance, they did not stop their shows at all during this time. They just figured out how to do it. And of course, they had to take different precautions and the venue required different rules and they had to do smaller performances, but they didn't stop at all. And the same thing with the Gulf Coast Dance Theater. They just, the owner, my friend Miss Ann, was like, yeah, we're doing the show. It's happening. We're going to figure it out and we're going to give the performance to these kids and it's going to happen. And I really admired that and wanted to support them, which was kind of the premise of the show. Also, I have many friends who are out of work. Like my favorite sound guy is not doing sound at all right now. I have friends that have lost their apartments, their homes, their jobs. And, I just really, the District Dance Academy where we're having it, Hugo and Stacy are professional West Coast swing dancers. And they were telling me that they actually travel 40 weeks out of the year. and they started the District Dance Academy, which is a beautiful facility. They started it as their like retirement plan. So it's just a baby studio. They started in 2018, and then all of a sudden things are closed down and all of their gigs are canceled. Like, they're doing fine, they're making it go right,
Right.
but
Right.
what are people supposed to do? And,
Right.
as you know, the arts aren't getting money from people.
Right.
And most artists don't even qualify for unemployment because they're 1099s.
Right.
So yeah, anyway, I have a lot to say about the subject.
Yeah.
But we were just like, no, we have to get started again. We have to find a way. So that's what we're doing.
That's so awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
And you're right, because the artists, I mean, it's we don't get enough funding as it is,
No,
just for stuff.
no funding.
Right, no funding. And now things are shut down, so it's like it makes it even just really, really tough for a lot of artists.
It's true.
So with an event like this, is this something, did you have this in mind? Did it come because of trying to help artists, or was it something that you already had in mind pre-COVID or whatever it was, or
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like things, the world taking the direction it did was as much as a surprise to me as it was for everybody else. So when things first started rearranging, I'll say rearranging, it's a rearrangement. My first primary focus was like, everybody else, was the safety of my family and my children, making sure that they continued their schooling. And my daughter is an aspiring dancer, so she needed to stay in ballet class. And, my husband, had to start working from home, and he was working like a dog. So I just really did everything I could to support my family. And then we figured out how to start teaching online dance classes, which actually turned out, in many ways, this situation for my family too turned out to be a blessing. My family and I have spent so much time together, and we love it. Like, we look forward to like our family nights. I don't know, how about you? Same thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible. I've never, like, I've always joked my husband's always the one that's cooked, but I've started cooking. My kids and I are like on a tight schedule. We have family cleaning day. It's like, it's good.
Yeah.
We like it. We really like it. But so then I started teaching online dance classes, and that was so cool because I somehow was able to teach dance classes in other countries. So I ended up teaching dance class in England, and then I did an online like tap festival, and I was teaching students in Ecuador and Puerto Rico. That's another country, but
Right.
and all over the place. And I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then during this time, I've had an insane amount of life changes, and yeah, I mean, it really started when I went to see 8 o'clock theater's spelling bee. I guess it was in August when I saw it. I can't remember the exact time, but I saw it and I started to get inspired then. And then, I mean, to be totally honest, on one of my not so good days, my husband came to me and he said, "You need to do a show." And I was like, "But everything's closed." He was like, "Figure it out."
Figure it out.
We love you, but go back to work.
Right.
So I started looking at, different musicals that I could do with a smaller cast, because of course, we can't ignore what's actually going on here.
Right.
And then, like I said, I called some of my people and I was like, "Hey, want to do a show?" And they were like, "Yes, we want to do a show." So, after some back and forth, I realized that, what our purpose was really just to help as many artists as possible. And, doing like a full musical or something like that right now, we don't even have the venue for that. So we just really wanted to, support the arts activities that we're supporting other people and figuring it out. We really wanted to give jobs to out of work event industry personnel. And, we just wanted to get back on stage ourselves. So that's really why this happened.
Yeah, I love it. So as an entity, you know, your business model.
Yes.
That is that something? How are you developing in that? Because it seems to me that a lot of people that had this before this whole madness were doing this, and now
Mhm.
it's sort of like they're still doing it, but there's an added thing to it. Like this, for
Yes.
instance, right? This was not something that I used to
No,
sit here and interview people for, I love it, but it turned into this great thing that I love to do
it's
now
fantastic.
because of what occurred. Um,
Yeah.
so is that something? Because I mean, the Zoom thing, I mean, I'm a little bit torn because I also love live performances, right? I want to go
Yes. Oh yeah.
sit down and
We
I want to
need
see
we
things,
need to get live performances
right?
back
I
for
want to
sure.
see that. This is great. This is a great as another thing, as a tool, as another just another thing, right? Like you said,
Agreed.
you were able to teach all over, all over the world.
It
I
was
mean,
awesome.
that's an amazing thing. So, your business model, has it changed in the last 6 months?
That's a really interesting question. For teaching, absolutely. You were saying before about like when we were first talking in the beginning about I can't remember exactly what you said, but I wanted to throw in there that like it was like during this time adults going back and finding their
Right.
like picking things up, and I got to tell you it's so true. My adult tap class is bumping.
Really?
It's so great. Oh yeah, and they're
Oh,
still
that's so
zooming,
cool.
and it's one of the if they're watching right now, it is one of the highlights of my week. I love it.
Uh,
Yeah, we have so much fun. It's so great. Yeah, so from that angle, for sure, I think we will be. I was just talking to my studio owner about this. I think we definitely will be adding an online element for the
mhm,
long haul.
yeah.
And I know other people are doing the same thing. They're doing it in my husband's company. The District Dance Academy has a whole online series that they're doing now. There's a lot of fear that's been instilled in our society as a result of, what's happened. And I think that some people won't feel safe coming back for a very long time.
Yeah.
But we still need to provide them with art. They
Right.
still need to be able to have access to it. So I think that online is definitely going to be the way to go for that. One really stellar example of bringing the arts back is actually Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Mm,
He wrote Phantom of the Opera.
mhm.
If you happen to go to his Facebook page, he is like I'm pretty sure he participated in the vaccine trials for COVID, specifically stating like I will literally do whatever it takes to get the Phantom back on stage in this theater with our full audience. Like he is on a mission and not stopping. And I
Mm,
think with theater and dance, it's really important. We were talking in the beginning about communication. You know, there's only so much that you can achieve for on this medium. I mean, you have movies and that's a whole nother thing, but
mm.
in terms of live shows, like the energy of being in the room with
Oh,
the
yeah.
audience and the actors,
Yeah.
there's no way to replace that.
No.
You
No.
can't do it. And also artists need time. I mean, this is one of the other things that Andrew Lloyd Webber says, like you can't just okay, we're starting a show tomorrow. You have
Right.
rehearsal. The dancers have to get in shape. You
You're
can't
right.
stand in your living room dancing. We're all doing it, but
Right.
you have to like actually dance and learn the choreography and
Right.
practice your songs. It's not just like, okay,
Also
society starts and
mental.
then boom, we're gonna have shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's also mentally, you got to
Anyway,
get back into
crazy.
that groove. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a combination. I would love to see like Hamilton. I'm a giant Ham fan. And thank Lynn Manuel Miranda graced us with this beautiful gift of putting Hamilton on Disney Plus for us a year early to help get us through this time. And I am so thankful for him and doing that.
Yeah.
And I hope that I do hope that other shows can do the same thing and that it
Yeah.
eventually goes in that direction where we can have more live theater for us. But like I said, nothing replaces the
Yeah.
feel of the live show itself.
Yeah. Especially performing, like, I mean, we're talking about the audiences also coming out, but an artist needs to perform. And yes, perform.
Yes.
I've performed here. I have a couple of other apps that I play my guitar on and stuff. And it's great, but, you're playing and
Yes.
thank you, everybody. Thanks for the heart. Thanks for the thumbs
It's
up.
like your first
And
open mic night. There's nobody in the coffee shop.
yeah, it's like, but I appreciate that. I know they're there, and I see the little hearts and little thumbs up. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's that energy of the audience that really gets you jazzed up. Not just that, but like you were mentioning earlier about some people being afraid to come out. Well, art is going to get people feeling better and more comfortable,
Yes,
and
it
they
will.
can actually
Yes,
rise
it will.
up where they are going to feel better to come out, and they're going to see things. It just rises. Just lifts them, makes them feel better.
That
And
is the exact reason why I do art. Exactly what you just said.
yeah,
Because people come out and like whatever problem they're having in their life, they go and they see a great show, and it's not a screen, and it takes their attention off it for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is,
right.
and they leave in a better place than when they
Mhm.
walked in the door.
Yeah, you give them just that nice positive boost of energy, to
Yeah,
go
it's
on
true.
and until the next thing that they need. And that's what art's supposed to do. That's the reason of art. I want to talk a little bit about. We were talking. You mentioned earlier about the Hamilton and
Yeah,
Lynn, because I know you love Hamilton, and I
I
again
do.
I know the music because I'm big. I love musicals, right? Which for a
Yeah.
Puerto Rican from the Bronx, of course, duh. Of course I love musicals, right?
Yeah.
But I grew up watching, of course, Grease was probably the first. I didn't know it was a musical, right? I just saw,
Okay.
the movie John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, and I was like, oh my
Mhm.
God, this is so cool. And that kind of started with the musicals, and then Hamilton. Well, first, In the Heights
Yes.
with Lynn. Like for me, as a Latino growing up in the Bronx, I mean, that whole story was like me. It was like
Wow.
me, my brother, my sisters growing up, our families, my grandma, his grandma or his aunt in that was just incredible. It was like my family. Then
Yes.
Hamilton, the music is just so incredible.
It's amazing.
It's just so amazing. What do you think? I mean, Lynn is sort of like he's like another, it's just something else. I mean, he's also like an incredible improviser. Like I don't know if
Yes.
you've seen him. Like
Freestyle love supreme.
I mean, you tell him
Yes.
any subject and he'll just go off, and it's just I've never seen anything like it. I think that happens very rarely in life. What is it about Hamilton for you that really just you know uh, that really just did it for you? Was it the message, the music, all of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I just want to say that Lynn actually started as a freestyle rap artist. He has a
Right.
documentary up. And
Yeah, yeah.
anyway, I highly recommend dabbling in freestyle rap. I may have tried a few times. I'm getting better. It's really fun and not as hard as you think once you get started, but
Oh,
we'll leave that
oh,
for
okay.
now. What do I love about Hamilton? So let's see. The thing that I mean, so what I love about it, and then from that love, I have listened to every interview that the cabinet, their production team, has done.
Mm,
I have researched the producer and listened to all of his podcasts and interviews that he's been on. There's a podcast called the Hamilcast where so many of the people who have been in the show, including Lynn, has been on the show and talked about like the insides and outs of the show itself. So in this moment, I'm just a lot more educated on the show. But what I loved about it was the fact that when you're in the same field, you can become very judgmental about what you're looking at, not
mhm.
necessarily even intentionally, but you notice the mistakes, you notice the miscues, that kind of thing. Um, the musical is set up the way that I love musicals, which is very few sets and just the cohesiveness between the cast and seamless, fast transitions,
Mm,
and just great music, great actors, great dancing. Another musical that I love that's kind of choreographed, completely different, but also in the same way as Chicago. It's
mm,
everybody's in black. There's like a chair and the band, and
mm,
it's just the dancers on stage killing it.
mm,
And I really appreciated when I saw Hamilton for the first time, how much work went into all of those details, because they did not miss anything. There was no transition that wasn't, you know what I mean? There wasn't
Yeah,
any
no,
like missing part. It just continued to move the whole time.
yeah,
And that's what I really loved. My show director and I, when we put stuff together, we really strive to achieve that.
right.
Um, and from there, there's so many things that I love about it. But the second thing really is, now that I've researched it, and this also dovetails in with what we were talking about earlier, but Lynn's team has been with him for the last 15 years.
Yeah,
They're all friends,
yeah,
and they don't compromise their integrity on their shows.
right.
They do what they feel is right, and they communicate, and they have a really great, they work together. And I feel like, even though it hasn't been the same length of time, but I have a team that's with me also. And, when we're really working together as that cohesive unit, our products are really, really good. And another cool thing was the producer, Jeffrey Seller. I listened to he's also produced Rent and Avenue Q. But he says, like, somebody asked him, like, how do you choose a musical? And they wanted to know, like, is it money or whatever? And he's basically said that, like if he chooses the musical based on what he wants to say to the audience.
Mm,
And he said, like, he doesn't ever even think about, I mean, of course he's a producer, he thinks about the money. I think about the money, but he chooses the show that he really believes in, and he chooses the message that he really wants to say, and he puts his heart and soul into it, and that
yeah,
formula is successful. So that's the other thing that I really, in addition to all the great singing and dancing and all the choreography is so cool. Andy
yeah, yeah,
Blackenbuehler is like,
yeah,
anyway, but those are the two things that I really love about it the most.
yeah. And it goes back to what we said earlier about having that like-minded group of people together to
Yes.
work with, because that is really what's gonna create the best product.
Yeah.
Lynn has managed to do it twice,
I know. It's
but again,
crazy.
now it almost you almost kind of know he's gonna do it a third time.
Oh yeah,
You
for
know what I
sure.
mean? And maybe even more than that. He's a young guy. So because of that team that he puts
Yeah.
together, and just to and I don't know a lot about the technical parts of the putting a show together, like what you were talking about, but when you're talking about the seamless transitions,
Yeah.
it really I really can understand that watching In the Heights, because In the Heights just never was a moment that you felt didn't need to be there.
Right.
And as a writer also, like when I'm doing a film, you want to kind of get moment to moment where people aren't, they're taken into whatever it's on the screen, but not necessarily bored by it. Sometimes
Exactly.
you watch a film and you'll be like, that really wasn't needed.
Yes, I
Those
have for
little
sure
that
been
little
there.
3 minute scene was not really needed. All right, it's there, but it's not needed. But that musical just seemed to just go right to, and you get to the end and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you're out of breath almost,
Yes.
with that one. So to get a little bit, I don't want to get too much technical, obviously, but when you're
Okay.
actually sitting down and writing a show,
Mhm.
um, or working on a show, what makes those transitions smooth? Like, is there anything technical that you can actually say, like, this makes it smoother? Like, I know from editing the eye
Interesting.
lines, the eye lines for, right? Like when somebody turns and you're gonna cut that eye line, those eyes have to be at where you want them to be at the next frame.
Yeah.
Because if they're like this, and then you go and you cut, and they're looking down, it's gonna look weird, and the audience gets taken out of the production, which is sort of like what we were talking about as a performer and somebody who knows what goes into the shows. Sometimes you kind of back there and you're like, oh, okay, I see what they did there.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what lens they used there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's weird that
Exactly.
they put the lighting up there. And you're like, ah,
Totally.
you're like, you missed the whole movie. But
Yeah.
is that so? What is it that you look for? What's the most important transition, if you can give us that, is if it's not a secret.
No, not at all. When you work with, I haven't actually been the producer on a show that has like really giant set pieces. So we should talk later after I've done that, and then I can tell you how I feel about that. For me, I like to do things in the style of Hamilton, which have, certainly have sets, but really are just more about the actors and the dancers and the singers and their art and their talent. So in the shows that I've produced, like for example, when we did Pippin, my show director came up with the brilliant idea to have boxes get moved around the stage to like represent our different scenes and stuff like that. So we physically don't put things in that take a lot of time to change things around. And we incorporate the scene changes or any sort of, change. It's not always just a scene. Into the choreography and the staging of the show so that the show doesn't have to stop for a big scene change. Now, like I said, when I produce a show, when I produce Wicked for you or something like that, or Dear Evan Hansen, which has these giant screens coming in and out, we'll talk again.
I like that one.
And then I'll tell you how I do with that. But so far, that's how we've been successful with it.
That's that Ben Platt, right? I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's great.
He's so cool too.
God, he's
that soundtrack is amazing.
It is. I've heard it a lot. So the so the sets, I know what you mean, because sometimes you'll go to like a show and everything is just like, wow. I mean, but then everyone gets lost in it.
Yeah,
the characters get lost in this huge giant set. I can't remember which show I saw, but I saw something, and it was too much going on.
I've seen that too.
And I
won't mention any names in this moment.
No, I won't. but
I've seen it too.
I saw years ago. I saw 1776.
Okay.
With it was actually Brett Spinner. He plays Data on Star Trek. He's a great singer.
Nice.
But he played the lead. He played John Adams in it, and it was so good. It was just one set.
Yeah.
They were just in that room, and the room was just chairs, and it was very simple, but it was so riveting because the performances were so great. The songs are great, and you got to focus on that rather than focus on whatever else is floating around in the background that takes you off the story. So that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. And now some people really get it right with big sets, like The Lion King. I mean, if I ever get a chance to talk to the person who staged that show in terms of like their set pieces coming in, I was in complete awe and admiration when I saw that, because they did not miss a beat. And they've got like giant elephants and birds.
I've seen like clips of that,
crazy, and like the stampede coming in, and the show just continued the whole time, and it was so cool. So they figured it out. I was impressed.
That's not easy, because now you got animals and
crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
If you had to just be on an island with only one musical, which one would it be?
Oh God.
Dun 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 dun.
Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna say Pippin. I love Hamilton with my heart and soul, and just been researching it a lot. But Pippin for sure is my absolute favorite musical. I mean, I love Fosse, and I feel like every single character, it's not the most PG musical, but every single character in the show, I feel like I have been every character at one point or another. And the music is so geniusly written and beautiful. Stephen Schwartz is amazing, and I've actually done Pippin 3 times. I almost did it a 4th time this year.
Wow.
And I would do it again in a heartbeat. I love it.
I don't actually know the music. I have to kind of like dive into that. So that's kind of exciting.
Well, interesting. It always comes in, the lyrics come in on the 2 all the time, which is kind
really
of interesting. Yeah. You'll listen to the track, you'll hear it.
Oh, that's cool. All right. So let's I want to actually, we're heading into an hour. Do you see what I mean?
What? It went by so
I told you, or didn't I tell you that?
Are there still people here? Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, let's talk again about your event coming up on November first. I'm going to put that up there. Artists
Yeah.
United to Save the Arts.
Yep.
Such a great thing. I know Hannah Lee is, she's incredible.
Yes,
I
she
don't
is.
think I know. Yeah, so this is going to be exciting. So tell me, what is the besides seeing all your friends, what's that going to be like?
Oh my
I mean,
God,
it's
I'm
been
so
7 months
excited.
that you guys have performed together. I mean, this is going to be so incredible.
Oh man, yeah, it's gonna be amazing. Well, Hanali and Carlos and Joanne and I perform together a lot under normal circumstances.
Okay.
So that'll be really nice because there's just like a really great, we're all really on the same page. And actually, there's an artist on here that recently confirmed and approved that I could say that he's officially a part of the showcase, and that is David Pomerantz.
Oh, very good. I love
Yeah,
David. Oh, David is
he's
so
so
awesome.
nice.
Yeah.
Really great guy. Yeah, so those are the people. I'm just looking at the list of performers. So Mike and Ellie are Lindy Hoppers.
Mhm.
Mike and I met at an event a couple of, like, I think last year. Yeah, last year. We both performed at the same event, and then we ended up doing another show together. It was like a Ginger Rogers Fred Astaire number. It was
Mm.
amazing.
Wow.
And then, oh, you actually have the picture of some of it on
Oh, yeah.
the ballroom floor. You can see us there. I
Oh,
don't know if you pulled it up. Yeah, there it is.
oh my God. Isn't
Yeah.
that awesome?
Oh, it's so
Actually, yeah, I'm
cool.
sorry I didn't show some of these photos. I
That's
wanted to.
okay. No worries. Yeah. So this was from like the Fred and Ginger we did together, but he's not. He has an actual dance partner. Her name is Ellie. And they compete together, and they're good friends of mine and just amazing performers. So they're going to be a part of the showcase. And then Jared Brunson is a professional ballet dancer. He dances with Complexions, and they tour all over the world. And they're just not touring right now, so he's
Yeah.
coming. Paul, the student that I referred to, he is also performing. And then who else do we have? Oh yeah, I've got my girls, my dance team. We've been together for 8 years.
Wow.
I've watched them grow up, and now they are spectacular dancers, and they have a really nice following down here. So I'm so excited about that. And then
Yeah.
also performances from the two places we're benefiting, the 8 o'clock theater and the Gulf Coast Dance Theater as well.
Yeah, that's so cool. I
Yeah.
want to, if you don't mind, I just want to show a couple of
No.
photos
Okay,
here.
so this is from Anything Goes. This is actually from 8 o'clock theater. I'm standing there in the middle with my mouth open.
Yeah.
I was one of the angels, and that's my dear friend Alana on the other side of me, in the same costume. So
Mhm.
this is from Blow Gabriel.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, that's cool.
That's so good.
Yeah. Oh man.
Now, how are you? You have to be so dizzy at this point.
So this was actually the largest show I'd ever done. We performed for 2,000 people.
Wow.
It was amazing. And the reason the photographer got that picture is because the audience applause for so long that we had to hold. That was our final pose.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was so cool. We loved it.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Now I know you also have been going on. I don't know if this is recent, but
that was last year. Also, last year was a good year.
Yeah, seriously, this is great.
So this was a swing dance flash mob that I did. The gentleman next to me, his name is Dominic. He runs an organization called the Cat's Meow, which is a huge Lindy Hop following in our community here. He's out of St. Petersburg, and the city of Clearwater. My friend, well, not the whole city, but someone from the city contacted me and asked me if I would produce a flash mob for one of their events. So that's what this routine is.
Wow. So cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Wow. Yeah. I love it. I love it. So, you definitely have to come back again. You definitely,
when I produce that big set piece,
yes,
I'll come back and tell you how it went.
I'll see how you shrunk it down and decided we're gonna do Wicked with not that much stuff, 2 brooms, and that's about it.
Yeah, you should have Han Lee and I, and maybe we could even get Amy in here, and we should have a show to tell you all of our crazy show stories.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah,
because had them both on. Now I've had all 3 of you on separately.
Oh my God,
so
it would be amazing.
have you all 3 on.
Yeah. we've done so many performances now together, and some in very short amounts of time.
Right.
So those are fun stories.
I love that. I love that. We'll definitely set that up for sure. So,
Yay.
Lyla, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you. Good luck with the. I'm going to show it one more time with everybody. Please
Thank
check
you.
this out. The email is right down there if you want more information.
Yes, and our ticket site is up now. I'll just say it. It's unitedtosavethearts.com, so people can get tickets directly there.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I will see you soon. And again, if you need anything in helping in that area, I'm always available. Just
I'll let you know. Thanks for having me. This
Thank
is
you.
awesome.
It's my pleasure. All right. Oh, hold on. You were saying bye.
Oh, I just said goodbye, everybody. Thanks for everyone who listened.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I don't like to cut off anybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much to Lyla for being on. She was fantastic. And what a great purpose. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I do this. It's because of stories like that, and because of people that are doing this kind of work and getting the message out and helping other artists. This is, to me, is my love, my passion. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you all on Thursday night. I'll have Igor Martinez is going to be on. He owns a recording studio right here locally, and we're going to talk about recording music. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. God bless you all. And as always,